As the market's changing, you're seeing customers driving changes towards not only moving from higher powered workstations to lower powered workstations through tablets. They're actually looking to deploy devices, deploy solutions that don't require PCs, right? The world is moving towards submission of data directly into business processes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, got a great segment lined up for you here today. With me, I have an incredible guest, gentleman by the name of Mr. Jim Forger, the Worldwide Product Manager for Alaris, a Kodak Alaris business. Good morning, Jim, and how are you doing today?
Paul. Very excited to catch up and have a conversation with you today.
Awesome. I appreciate you taking the time to spend with the viewers and the listeners this morning. Hey, with a title like Worldwide, you literally have the world on your shoulders, don't you? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's correct, Paul. I know you're primarily focused in the U.S., but we're a worldwide company, and we do business with customers and partners throughout the world. Very, very interesting, right? Different markets, different opportunities, different cultures, and different level of importance on the various aspects of the whole document management, document processing, content onboarding, right? So it gives me a really interesting perspective across the entire domain.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Jim. You've been with Alaris for a number of years, maybe more than you'd like to admit. But, just so that our viewers and listening audience can get to know you a little bit better.
Primarily, I'm an engineer at heart, right? Software engineering was my background. Started with Kodak back in the day, doing software, doing systems. From there, went on to do a lot of project management type work. Then migrated over towards product line and portfolio management, primarily in the digital devices. So our digital cameras, our digital picture frames. Done a lot of work with Kodak's partners in terms of delivering online photo finishing services. So a lot of web-based client server, right, end user interactions, primarily in the consumer domain, and then supported through the business to business. And then I was fortunate enough to come over to Alaris back actually before the company spun out and formed. So I've been with Alaris since it was formed, and primarily focused on systems and solutions. So you'll see a lot of our software offerings, and you'll see some of our new systems offerings I've had the opportunity to work on.
So what does Jim like to do for fun outside of work?
Well, I like to do things in the summer much more than in the winter, which we're coming up onto now, right? In the winter, I do have a snowmobile, so I enjoy that. In the summer, I like bike riding. I have a motorcycle, so do a little bit of traveling and I keep myself busy. And I'm also fortunate enough to do some traveling through my job here, so I get to see other areas of the world as well.
Well, thanks for sharing that. So, hey, as I've gotten to know you over the last few years, I've seen a lot of changes going on at Alaris, and there's sort of been a rebirth of the organization. There's, frankly, some what I would consider some radical changes that have gone on with, not only the leadership of the organization and the sales and the marketing, but the products. We're seeing some really cool stuff emerge as a result of this rebirth. And what do you attribute that to? What are you seeing, and how's it affected you? And, is it giving you kind of a new opportunity to get even more creative than you have been able to in the past? What's going on there?
Well, interesting question. So absolutely is giving us a lot of opportunity, right? Have a very talented team here we're working with. And to get back to your question of, the product and the transformation, what we're seeing is we're working very closely with our partners and with our customers in terms of keeping up with their needs as market trends are changing. Historically, the company's been focused on delivering very, very high quality scanning platforms, typically deployed through computer workstations. So software, computer workstations, drivers, image processing software, all required right in the old workstation USB connected domain. As the market's changing, right, you're seeing customers driving changes towards not only moving from higher powered workstations to lower powered workstations through tablets. They're actually looking to deploy devices, deploy solutions that don't require PCs, right? They want to basically deploy simple, easy to use, PC-less, driverless, software-less devices throughout their organization. So that's given us an opportunity to really look at what we were doing and what we needed to do to keep up with these changing trends in the market.
So along those lines, something new's emerged from Alaris that's pretty exciting that you're directly involved with, and it's something called INfuse. Why don't you tell us a little bit about INfuse?
The INfuse solution is a new solution. I wish I could sit here and tell you that we thought up this great idea, sitting around here back in our labs. But what happened was when we were talking to our partners about our, every year we talk to our customers, we talk to our partners as we roll out our new offerings. They told us, you guys have, your image quality is second to none. You have outstanding paper handling. Your service is just top notch. Your software is optimized to work with your system, right? All of that, you guys are doing a great job. But there's a set of our needs that you are not yet addressing. Not only are you not addressing, none of your competitors are. So we sat down and spent a lot of time with our customers, both from, like their end users and the customers from the business analyst perspective that are re-engineering their business systems. And we really listened to what they told us. And we spent a lot of time with our partners, right, who are working very closely with their customers and were telling us the needs that weren't being met. A lot of those needs primarily fell into, a couple of categories. Number one, we talked about the changing market trends. They were looking for a way to simplify content onboarding, right? The world is moving towards submission of data directly into business processes, right? They're moving away from scanning the archive, more towards scanning the business process. So they wanted simplification of that process. They didn't want to deploy software, deploy drivers, run image processing, manually set up profiles. That required not only cost, effort, and energy on their side, but users, right? It was more difficult than it needed to be, right? They had to understand devices. Typically, it was 2 or 3 steps. They had to run some scanning software, scan it to their desktop, and then submit it into a business process, right? That was an area that they felt wasn't being adequately addressed. The other area that wasn't being adequately addressed was the deploying of these devices and the management of these devices, right? It was very cumbersome. It was very labor intensive for them to go to their branch locations, their doctor's offices, their customers in many cases, and supply these scanning devices because they had to manually go out and set them up and configure them. Right. And even as we're migrating towards network devices, right, it still is a very intensive hands-on approach, right? And once it did get deployed and configured, as business processes improved and as changes were needed, they needed a way to more easily update and keep these things up to date and managed than what you were seeing today. And the other big area was the ability to directly identify their end users at the time of scan. Business processes noticed some type of exception. So did the right documents not get submitted? Was there missing information? Was there missing signatures, right? Today, that all happens after the fact. So from a customer experience perspective, a customer walks into a bank and is applying for a loan, they fill out their paperwork, forget to sign a form or forget to fill out a section. The information gets submitted, and that's not caught till hours and hours later when they've since left the office. You got to bring them back in. So very, very poor customer experience. On the other side of that, from the back office perspective, as content's being submitted, if you don't pick that information up at the time that it's been submitted, you have to go chase down who has that information. You have to go find the documents, you have to resubmit it and figure out what the problem is. So very, very expensive, right? And they didn't, our customers and our partners didn't really have a way of instantaneously notifying the user of those types of problems. As well as once a system got deployed, right, the ability to actually lock that down and prevent end users from inadvertently making mistakes in the configuration, right? Because they change something, they mess something up, then all of a sudden either you got to send, it's a call to their IT organization to fix it, or they're submitting things with the wrong parameters. So they're scanning it, the wrong file format, or they've changed the DPI without knowing it. And all of a sudden you're getting back-end errors on your data extraction in your business process, right? So the ability to more tightly control those deployments was another important problem being ignored.
If a problem arises at the point of capture, at the point of origin, at the point where that transaction is occurring with the customer, if we can identify it, then we want to correct it before that customer experience or that interaction with the customer, they depart. And then we have to call them back or email them, say, you know what, I know I asked you to do this before, but could you come back in and, you know, re-sign this document and get it scanned because we missed it? So, something along those lines. Is that what we're talking about? Trying to prevent those kinds of situations from occurring in the field with the customer at the point in time in which that transaction is occurring?
Sure, that's one example. Another example, one of our customers is using this submission of proof of deliveries, right? So a truckload comes in with content, information gets scanned, the truck leaves, the warehouse worker goes off and does something else. If it's a bad invoice, incorrect information, right, and it gets caught several hours later or maybe the next day, right, you have to go back and find that information, go back and figure out where the problem was, right? So that's not really a customer facing, this is more internal, but it's those same types of problems.
Yeah, that reminds me of a client that's in the food distribution business, and as they're receiving or delivering product to one of their customers, inevitably they have them sign documents regarding like food safety, inspection, or, you know, damaged products. They'll take pictures, things like that. You know, today, well, prior to a solution like INfuse, they would have to gather all that information up from delivery to delivery to delivery, and then take all that information back to their corporate office and then put it in a batch for a administrator somewhere in the office when they get around to it, to get all that stuff scanned and put into the process, which ultimately means that their supply chain partners will eventually get paid at some point, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, right. So the idea of the driver being empowered to be able to take these documents and drop them into the scanner with the push of a button, we're talking about expediting that process dramatically, correct?
Absolutely, right. It takes what typically was days or sometimes even weeks, right? If you get into BPOs and service providers, a lot of times there's, you know, picking up and bringing documents into their own facility, doing all of the prep work, scanning it, right, and then working with the customer to get that information back. That sometimes took weeks, right? That's fully automated now. That could all be eliminated, right? And the customer, rather than dropping a document into an envelope, they drop it into a scanner, push the button, right? And it's just fully automated.
You've wrapped a really interesting message around the marketing side of the solution. It's being described as an IoT Smart Connected Scanning offering. And really what you're talking about is a lot of this capability of being able to make the experience simple, right? From the deployment to the use, to the ongoing life cycle management of the solution. When I think of IoT, I go to my retail, Home Depot or Menards or whatever my favorite store is, and I want to buy a smart connected thermostat. I take it out of the box, I install it. I don't have to call an HVAC guy to come in. It's been engineered in such a way that I can take it out of the box and install it myself. That's really what we're talking about here now with INfuse. Is that correct?
That's absolutely what we're talking about, Paul. Think of that concept in a business environment, right? So getting a scanning device set up as easily as you set up your home thermostat, right? You take it out of the box, you plug it in, you turn it on, and it's smart enough to know where to connect into, to get it set up, get its configuration, get all of its parameters, right? And it knows the setting for the various business processes that it's been set up for. So its configuration, its scanning parameters, its file formats, right? And just as importantly, it knows when those types of information and documents are scanned. It knows where to submit them and how to submit them efficiently into the business process. And it's smart enough, just like your home thermostat, right, to wait for feedback from the business process in terms of, is the information complete? Is it correct? Is it accurate? Does the business process have everything it needs to process that information? Or was there some type of problem that we want to notify the user of so that they can do the corrections?
And this is what's different. I mean, we haven't seen this in our industry for decades, right? I mean, it's just never been around. So the transformative, innovative technology you guys have brought to the table that partners like us or customers can take advantage of now with this solution is unlike we've ever seen in the past. This is really quite different and for the good.
Oh, absolutely, right. And basically what we did is we looked at the problem set and we looked at all of our internal capabilities. We looked at our hardware capabilities. We looked at our image processing capabilities. We looked at our platforming capabilities. We looked at our software capabilities, and we took a fresh look, right? We stepped away from the traditional model of a scanner connected through a USB port to a workstation where it required a driver and then into application software. And we said, how do we make this easier, right? And we took all of these capabilities that we had at our disposal and essentially re-engineered the content onboarding process.
Can you kind of help maybe the viewers and the listeners understand where you might think a sweet spot, or is there a sweet spot for INfuse in terms of deployment in the field?
Paul, what we're finding is there's not really one sweet spot. We're seeing many sweet spots, right, if that makes sense. So the obvious sweet spot would be customer onboarding, right? Anytime you're working directly with a customer, so think of customer onboarding, think of loan applications, think of patients in doctors' offices or hospitals, right, where there's paperwork and there's customer facing, where you want to, the system is run by people that aren't scanning operators, right? They're doctors and nurses, they're loan officers. And it's very, very important for them to get that feedback if there's any kind of error, any kind of exception in those documents, right back while the customer's sitting there, right? That's an obvious one. But what we're seeing is, as we're working with partners throughout the world, is all kinds of opportunities are popping up. Over in Asia, we're working with some partners that do test grading in classrooms. So they're looking at deploying these devices inside of a classroom. Every day, students walk in, submit their homework, push the button, this is the homework, right? And then the teachers collect the tests and put it in at the end of the day, right? Again, distributed application, kind of what we call edge scanning, and important in terms of the system's locked down, so somebody can't come up and inadvertently change it, so you can't change the settings, the DPI mode, the file formats, right? It's all locked down so that the business process knows what to expect and is always getting good, consistent information for reliable results. I think we talked about earlier BPOs and service providers. what they're doing is they're using this system to avoid truck rolls and to get to some smaller customers don't necessarily justify document pickup and delivery. An opportunity with a grocery chain of putting these in their delivery areas, so they're logging receipts of goods as they're coming in. You know, we're learning more and more every day, right? With more customers and more partners we're talking to, right? This is really resonating in terms of integrating into the business solutions that they're trying to deploy.
The applicability of it isn't pigeonholed into a single market. I mean, you talked about multiple markets there. I mean, education marketplace, you talked about the food service industry. I mean, there's really no limits in terms of where we could take this solution set and deploy it in the field for customers, because it's solving real world problems.
Yeah, and as you see distributed scanning or edge scanning or scanning as close to the document receipt as possible, we see the use cases just continuing to expand. As companies and customers want to get rid of the cost and complexity of PCs, right? This is just opening up endless opportunities for us.
Where do you see the future of InFuse? Is this a one-off kind of offering, or do you really see this as a platform?
So it's really based on a platform that we came out with. We call it our System on a Chip platform. Historically, scanning devices, scan paper, and submitted kind of raw images to a PC, and PC had to do all the heavy lifting, right? All the image processing to take that scan data and turn it into a finished file. We came up with our System on a Chip architecture that essentially allowed us to run all that image processing and remove that heavy lifting from a PC. And we did that and deployed it right inside the scanner. The other important piece of this is our perfect page technology. So our perfect page technology is essentially an instantiation of our imaging algorithms that are optimized to take documents and optimize those for data extraction, right? A lot of devices or a lot of use cases, what you're trying to do when you scan documents, think of scanning photos, right? What you're trying to do is you're trying to visually match the original photo. What our perfect page allows us to do is optimize that document, right? Clean it up, get rid of any kind of abnormalities, properly rotate it, automatically crop it, right? Prep it so that when it gets into OCR processing, when it gets into field extraction, when it gets into classification, right? It's optimized for that type of data extraction. So the perfect page algorithms are also embedded in our System on a Chip architecture. So to get back to your question, right? This is the first device that we deployed, and it was based on our S2000 line of scanners. So you get the same outstanding paper handling capabilities, you get the same outstanding image quality that you see across our product line. But in this case, the other benefit of the System on a Chip is it utilizes firmware, right? So unlike other competitive devices that are locked into ASICs, they're fixed. They can't really be easily updated. Ours is a firmware and hardware-based system where we, along with running the algorithms, we were able to put in all the smart connectivity necessary to connect into the Smart Connected Scanning solution and to drop data into business processes, because it does all the finished files directly in the scanner. It communicates over the network with the controlling system and the business process for data, right? And the other benefit is, as we come up with new features and new capabilities, because it's all firmware based, customers and partners can upgrade their customers, right, directly through the system. So that's on the scanner side. The other input we're getting from our partners and from our customers is they see the value and they're seeing the benefits of the solution. What they're asking for is they're asking to see this deployed across our other scanning platforms. So in the future, you can probably expect to see this deployed in more than just a single format device.
With that, one could make the assumption that we'll be seeing even faster speeds or maybe even smaller form factor than what the INfuse is. I mean, we're talking about potentially scaling the product up and down to meet different market needs, if I could read between some of the messaging you're giving us.
Absolutely. So not only speeds and feeds, think of paper sizes, the ability for the end user to interact at the device directly with the business process, right? You can expect to see a lot of new capabilities coming out there. Because we have a separate control channel and data channel, you can expect to see optimizations and flexibility around things we're able to connect to, right? Systems and outputs we're able to connect to there, as well as the fleet management capabilities. We started with, as we said, we talked about the single device and the ability to control, dozens or thousands of devices through the system. The other area we're getting feedback is, since this is all API based, the partner's business application or the customer's business application can directly control the system. We're seeing requests in that area in terms of additional flexibility and capability that we take from the devices or from the system and then make those available back to the business processes.
So you touched on an interesting subject, and that is the separate data channel and control channel. Help the viewers and the listeners understand why that's so important. Because I know security has always been first and foremost at the top of Alaris's thought process when they bring an offering to market. And what's so significant about that dual channel architecture, and why should customers care about that?
So let's talk about the dual channel first, right? The dual channel, okay. What that means to your viewers is that we talked about this controlling software, configuration setup software, right? That basically connects to the scanner and controls the setup, the configuration, the scanning profiles, the file output that you're setting the device up to, right? And the data channel is essentially when a document is scanned, what happens to that data, right? It's delivered from the scanner directly into the business process. What our customers and what our partners told us, especially in areas like think financial, think insurance, think about healthcare, right? They have systems, our partners have systems in place with our customers. Our customers have systems in place already that are approved, that are certified, that are HIPAA compliant, right? What they told us is they don't want the introduction of additional software, especially device software, in that channel, right? They want to maintain the integrity of the data directly from the scanner to their business process. We have no data at rest in the device itself. It's scanned and it's directly delivered into the business process. And that's completely independent from the connection to the software to set up control.
To kind of wrap this up, Jim, tell me what we could expect to see maybe from Alaris with the INfuse offering over the next 6 to 12 months. Can you kind of give us a little insight of some of the cool stuff you guys are working on in the labs that we might start seeing trickling out in the field here soon?
Probably the nearest term things, you're going to see us focusing on improving our differentiators, right? So we talked about the ability for the users to interact with the business process right at the device. You're going to see improvements in the deployment of the setup, right? We're going to, believe it or not, we're going to make that even easier than it is today. And you're also going to see capabilities in terms of allowing customers and partners the flexibility to connect this into more of their own business processes. Short term, that's where the feedback that we've gotten thus far really has us honed in on these three areas.
What's all involved in taking an INfuse solution and deploying it in the field at a customer? Is this something IT typically has to be involved with, or is this something that a business user can install? What's that experience like?
Think of historical situation, right? involved IT, a lot of time and effort because you're going into configure PCs, install software, install drivers, set up profiles on the devices, right, on a one-off type basis. As the world evolved to more network devices, you still had that same process. You got rid of some of the PC type work, but still you have to, on the individual panels, go up and type in IP addresses and SSIDs and all that type of information. And that was still done on a one-off basis. Okay. So that was one area that we really focused on with INfuse is how do we, our partners and our customers told us that deployment of these devices and maintenance of these devices, right, was a real problem. So we put a lot of energy. And what we did is we came up with our patented EasySetup process. And essentially, an end user can take a brand new device out of the box, plug it in to the wall, and scan a setup sheet. We call it the EasySetup sheet that was provided either by their partner or by their internal IT organization. Right? They scan that sheet, and that device is online in about 15 seconds. It's all set up with its configuration and its profile information for the business process that it's attached to, right? And it eliminated the need for any personal IT involvement, right? So that's been a big hit with both our partners and our customers in terms of the amount of time, the amount of effort, and the amount of labor, right, that's saved during that process.
I mean, that's quite revolutionary, right, in the industry. I mean, we haven't seen this type of experience, user experience or deployment experience in the past because of all that those layers that you previously mentioned, drivers and software configuration and profiles and, operating systems and PCs and cables and, training and all that other stuff, right? I mean, you're talking about really radically shaking up the way things have been done in our industry for decades.
Right, and again, that came about by talking to customers, talking to partners, right, and them telling us, right, that is a major problem for us, right? Anything you can do to improve that, right, would substantially improve our systems.
What are a couple, maybe 2 or 3 takeaways the viewers and listeners you'd like to leave behind from this segment in terms of, if people watch this, I mean, we've talked about a lot of things. We talked about security. We talked about, a whole new way of solving ingestion of documents at the point of origin. I mean, there's just a plethora of things that we've kind of thrown at the viewers and the listeners. What would you like 2 or 3 takeaways to be at the end of all of this?
I think it's important to consider, right, a total end-to-end solution when you're re-engineering your business process, right? Don't just consider, hey, how am I going to improve my data extraction rates off my invoices, right? Think about how am I going to get my invoice processed more accurately, quicker, and through the system without errors, right? And once you take a broader view, right, and realize that there's opportunities not only in RPA, not only in data extraction, right, but in how content is submitted and how you're interacting with your user and delivering that total user experience, right? When you think about that, it opens your eyes to more robust solutions to vastly improve your end-to-end solutions, right? So Paul, let me ask you a question, right? From your viewers' perspective, what are some takeaways that you'd like them to walk away with from this video?
So number one is definitely the simplicity of the experience. This industry for 20 or 30 years has been doing things the same old way: tethered PCs, layers of software, complicated deployments, IT always having to be involved. And when you get into quantities of hundreds or thousands of capture devices in the field, you can imagine what kind of nightmare that creates for the customer. In some cases, they just choose not to do it and move back to a centralized model. So the idea of being able to do capture a point of origin, this really enables customers and us as solution providers to be able to engage with a customer in a whole new manner that hasn't been able to be done before. The speed of deployment, the simplicity, the remote management, the overall end user experience, allowing a business user to take it out of the box and deploy it. These are just things that couldn't be done before. And now we've achieved that with the INfuse platform. So yeah, we're jacked about it. We're really excited. It's and the customer feedback we're seeing in the field has just been fantastic. They love it.
Great to hear, right? And again, because the whole system, right? The concept came from partners like yourself, came from customers, right? So to see it actually hitting those needs, right, is very enlightening for us.
Jim, well, thank you very much for this comprehensive and informative overview of the INfuse platform that's originated from Alaris and the partner community in terms of providing you guys feedback, and of course your engineering group. I mean, clearly INfuse demonstrates Alaris is blazing new and innovative trails in the field of the content services marketplace. I know, and I have, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners gain a whole bunch of new insights into what you have framed up as, I think the term you're using is edge scanning, or what I've termed over the years as point of origin capture. We have learned just how easy it is to deploy these new devices, the INfuse, at the front end of our customers' business processes, which, now, I mean, we can measure in mere minutes as opposed to days or weeks as it has been in the past. We've also learned about what lies ahead in terms of future product improvements that we can expect from Alaris in the very near future from the INfuse platform. So, again, on behalf of our viewers and listeners, I just want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to spend with us.
All right, my friend. Well, you have
Right.
have a great weekend. I appreciate you
You
taking
too,
the
Paul.
time doing this. All right.
Let me know if you need anything else.